Americans for Fair Taxation presents the weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, February 25th, 2022. Would Karl Marx support the fair tax? An indirect tax, like the fair tax or state sales taxes, is a tax that's added to the cost of a product and collected by a retailer who then sends it in to the government. A direct tax is a tax that's paid by the citizen or organization directly to the government that imposes it. Income taxes and property taxes are direct taxes. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels published the Communist Manifesto in 1848. It's been cited as one of the basics for communism and socialism. It opens with, "A specter is haunting Europe, the specter of communism." And it ends by stating, "The proletarians have nothing to lose but their chains. They have a world to win. Working men of all countries, unite." The manifesto calls for a heavy, progressive, or graduated income tax, which is a direct tax. David Ireland published an article entitled "What Marxist Tax Policies Actually Look Like." After carefully reviewing the accumulated literature written by Marx and Engels and the people who worked with them, Mr. Ireland found that Marx proposed two principal programs as the solution to society's main ills. One was educating all children at the state's expense, an education which is equal, and two was a complete reorganization of relief for the least wealthy of the nation. Now, in order to pay for these two programs and at the same time replace all the present unjustly distributed taxes, his plan proposed a general progressive tax on capital. The rate would increase as the amount of capital involved rose, and there'd be a heavy graduated income tax on individuals. In this way, the burden of public administration would be shared by everyone according to his ability and would no longer fall mainly on the shoulders of those least able to bear it, as has hitherto been the case in all countries. Mr. Ireland also points out the tax landscape of Marx and Engels was very different from our own. In 1849, indirect taxes accounted for 40% of the Prussian Royal Finance Ministry's total tax take. Direct taxes accounted for only 29%. Poor households spent between 60 and 80% of their incomes on food, which was heavily taxed by the government. Because of the way the taxes were included in the prices, consumers often paid a price increase of as high as 90% in the case of rye flour and a smaller but still meaningful 20% premium for wheat flour. Now, instead of complaining about some people making more money than others, as many do today, Marx makes the case for the legitimacy of income inequality, both in the Grundrisse, where he wrote, "The wages being paid are economically just, i.e. determined by the general laws of political economy," and also in the Critique of the Gotha program, which called it the only fair distribution of the benefits of the present day mode of production. Marx opposed the indirect taxes in use in his day because these taxes most impacted the ones least able to pay and allowed the wealthy to escape being taxed. If properly levied, so as not to fall most heavily on the ones least able to pay, Marx preferred indirect taxes. In conclusion, there are many reasons why Marx would support the fair tax, an indirect tax. The fair tax corrects the issues that Marx was addressing by providing a prebate or tax credit that allows everyone to make tax-free purchases up to the poverty level for their family size, by only taxing new retail goods and services and not taxing the used goods that many of the lower income groups purchase, by eliminating the wealthy's ability to buy favorable tax treatment that allows them to pay a lower rate than the rest of us or even escape taxation altogether. That was a problem in Marx's time, same as it is today. The fair tax would reduce the price of goods by 10 to 20% by eliminating the embedded costs of the income tax system, thus helping everyone. It would eliminate the 7.65 to 15.3% payroll taxes taken from the income earned by lower income earners, and that would increase the amount they can spend to support their families. The fair tax would bring manufacturing and good jobs back to the U.S., creating higher paying jobs. It would make everyone aware of the cost of the federal government by showing the amount of the fair tax on every retail receipt. And finally, would eliminate the need to file federal income tax returns. Leona Helmsley was an infamous realtor in New York City. She went to jail for federal income tax evasion and other crimes in 1989. After 19 months, she got out of prison and was heard to say that her conviction was wrong. She said, "We don't pay taxes. Only the little people pay taxes." Well, that was the attitude of many of the wealthy in Marx's time. They paid no taxes while everyone else paid all the taxes. It's also the attitude of many of the wealthy today. They often purchase benefits that protect them from paying taxes at the same rate that the rest of us do. Please share this article with your more liberal friends. Show them that the best way to tax the rich is to make them pay federal taxes on everything they purchase. It's time for us to take back control and demand that Congress pass the fair tax. So what can each of us do? We can write letters and make calls to our elected representatives and attend Zoom town hall meetings demanding that if they really wanted to allow Americans to take back control, the first step is to eliminate the income payroll tax system and enact the fair tax. We should all remember Edmund Burke's warning that applies to our efforts to take back control. Nobody made a greater mistake than he who did nothing because he could only do a little. Take back control. Help us pass the fair tax. The IRS will be gone and we'll pay our taxes when we make purchases. We, not the ruling class and their minions in DC, will decide how much federal tax we pay, and we'll know how much tax we're paying because taxes will no longer be hidden from us. They'll be clearly shown on every retail receipt. If you have friends who don't know about the fair tax, send them to FAIRtax.org. Have them watch the whiteboards under how it works, and if they agree, ask them to please join us. Then, contact your members of Congress and the president and demand that Congress pass the fair tax, the only truly fair tax.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at FAIRtax.org.